Hello, and welcome to Wellness Wednesday with 3W. Wellness Wednesday is sponsored by 3W Medical for Women, a nonprofit medical clinic offering free of charge or low-cost women's health services in the Seattle area, regardless of income or insurance status. 3W does not profit off of the health choices women make. The information shared in this podcast is the opinion of the speaker or speakers. Medical information is not intended as individual medical consultation, but for general education only. Always talk to or consult your own health professional for personalized advice regarding medical decisions. And if you're in the Seattle area, consider making an appointment to consult with us. I'm Helen Nguyen, CEO of WAMS/3W Medical for Women, and the host of today's podcast. Hi there, Wellness Wednesday listeners. I'm back in the studio. Today, I have a pretty special guest. First of all, she used to work for 3W. She was one of the first people I hired, which was fantastic. She has gone through a lot of stuff with us, right, Andra? Mm-hmm. And Andra has come and has spoken about a variety of other topics, but one of our most popular topics was her personal story that has continuously done really, really well compared to our other podcast was her story about her and her dad experience, which was a really hard conversation to have.
It's a heavy topic.
It is a very heavy topic, but I just want to say thank you for sharing that with our listeners because it continuously is one of our more popular podcast that gets listened to, and I think it's because it's you. I think it's because of the rawness of the situation and just like being able to be vulnerable for our population. So the people that listen to it. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah.
I always like to get to come visit
TW
and Seattle and see people that I miss from here. So
Yes. So today we're having Andra come back in the studio and picking her brain on and building on that episode that was so heavy and the healing that has come from it, because it's an ongoing healing, right, Andra?
Yes.
As you said to me before, it's like it's lifelong healing from that type of trauma. And you specifically will be talking about EMDR as a tool that you've used and continuously used to this day, and how it's affected you in your healing. So yeah, I just what is EMDR and how did you get introduced to it?
Yeah. So EMDR it stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing.
Okay.
So the reason it's called that is that they use the most common method to use it is with eye movements, like stimulating each side of the eyes. Okay. But it doesn't always have to be used like that. And interestingly, when I did it, it wasn't.
Oh.
But that is the name. And so it is basically it's a psychotherapy technique that is unique because it is supposed to take less time than other psychotherapy techniques. So like less amount of sessions to kind of be able to process through the trauma. And it's specifically for trauma, like to alleviate the distress from trauma. And so it's kind of, I think, a newer, I don't know like the full background and history on it, and I'm not like a mental health expert, but I think it's more of a newer method, maybe like the early 2000s. And basically it comes from the concept that like the mind can heal similar to the way the body can. So like when you get like a cut or a wound in your leg, then your body works to like heal itself, right? But if you had like something get in that wound or it got like an infection, then it like kind of like festers and there's like a block. It can't like get around it. And so the theory was that the brain works similarly. And so we can have like stress or hard things happen to us and our brain is like working to heal. But trauma, an incident of trauma can do something to the brain that acts like a block, like almost like you got a foreign object in it and your brain is trying to heal, but it's like festering around it. And so EMDR and other psychotherapy, things like that, work to like pick the block out. Okay. So that it can keep healing. And EMDR specifically is, so people that have had trauma, if they're in a state of PTSD, they can be in a state of like fight or flight more often. And so that kind of like disrupts like their day-to-day living if you're kind of like living in that heightened sense. And so that's kind of the block that needs to get removed. And so basically it works. It started with the eye movement because what the central thing is that you get both sides of your brain stimulated at the same time while you are jumping into a traumatic memory and processing it. So it originally started with stimulating each side of the vision, but it can also be stimulated by like sounds on either side, or the way my therapist did it with feeling. So she had these buzzers called theratappers. And so I would like close my eyes and jump into the traumatic memory. And then she would turn on her buzzers and they buzz alternately, and she could up the speed or intensity, but they alternately buzzed in each of my hands while I was processing. And so that's like the two sides of the brain. And so I don't know all the science, like I said, but basically what that's doing is stimulating your right and your left side of the brain evenly. And so it helps process the trauma from your short-term memory, which is where it is in flight and flight, to your long-term memory. So it's not like it's making you forget it or like hypnotizing you or something. It's just helping you process it where it's supposed to be, so you can access those memories if you wanted to like sit there and think about it, but it's not like triggering you throughout the day in the forefront of your mind.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Like, does it just lingers after?
Yeah. So, meaning the trauma or the...
Yeah, the trauma, yeah.
So, yes. Sorry, I feel like I kind of have to back up here a little. So what was going on with me, I guess, why I kind of started seeking out this method is I wasn't seeking out the method per se right away, but I was trying to look for some therapy because I had, per the episode we did, I had like gone through a lot of trauma. I had, gone through like childhood sexual abuse and all of these things and kind of come out, on the other side. This was post having gone through this whole criminal trial and things against my father. And then I was married and I was actually like expecting my first baby, and it was a good time in my life. And I think that's kind of why it started coming up, was I was kind of like safe for the first time, and I had like some good things going on in my life, and I started having my trauma coming up more. So when I was pregnant with my oldest son, so this would have been like 5 years ago. I know the time just flew by, yeah. But it was like 5 years ago, and I was having a lot of flashbacks started coming up. So there's one time in particular I remember that I heard a song came on the radio that reminded me of something, and I just like blacked out, and I don't know what happened, but I was home alone, and then I woke up like hiding behind the toilet and like crying, and it was like things like that, and that were like disrupting my day, right? And then I was having nightmares like every single night, like every night a nightmare, and then I just didn't want to get out of bed, and I was also pregnant, so all those hormones, and so I kind of just powered through it as much as I could because there was a lot going on. And then my son was born, and he had some like medical issues, so we had to focus on that. So there was kind of like this period of my life where I was like dealing with that, but it really got like where I was having these triggers. I was like in this constant state of fight or flight. And so I think he was about 6 months old, and I told my husband, I need to go find a therapist. I need to like work on this. And so I didn't know EMDR existed. So I just was on my like computer searching like, trauma therapist and like just I want to go talk to someone and maybe they can help me. And so I kind of called a few people, and the first person that called me back, I went to have an appointment with her. And it was really just like providential for me because she was not that much older than me, which was nice to have that. And then she had gone through not really the same thing, but something very similar, where she had gone through child sexual abuse in her younger years. And then she had gone through EMDR therapy as a teenager. And so that had made her want to go into mental health counseling and specialize in that. And so I kind of I met with her, I liked her, and then I told her just my whole story and what I was trying to work with. And she explained to me what EMDR was and said, I think this would be good for you. And I told her, I was kind of cautious at first. I was I don't know, that sounds weird. And my first instinct was is this hypnotism, or is this fake, or a placebo? I don't know.
Well, it's anything to do with the brain. I'm always just I don't know about this.
I mean, my first reaction was that. Yeah, I was kind of I don't know. I just kind of wanted to talk to someone, and this sounds super weird. And
I know.
And she showed me
things.
She showed me the buzzer, and I was what is this like?
Is this Scientology?
I know. I was kind of feeling are we doing some sort of thing here? I don't know. I wasn't down for a ritual. I just wanted to sit on your couch or something.
Right.
But she told me to go home and read about it and think about it.
Yeah.
And so I did that. I was thinking about it, and then it was March of 2020. So I couldn't do it because everything shut down.
Oh,
which was probably good because I was super not sure about it at that time. But it kind of gave me some time. I read about it and I started doing telehealth visits with her. And so I got to know her really well, on a good therapist relationship where we were having these telehealth visits, which was kind of what I needed because I had these years and years of trauma, and I kind of just did some talk therapy and worked through a lot of that. And then I think it was probably that summer, or maybe I don't remember the timeline, but there was some point in that year when she started having in-person visits again, and that was when we started up the EMDR, and then I just kind of jumped into it, and it was really hard because for some people, if you have one incident of trauma, what is cool about EMDR is you could maybe do 2-3 sessions and be good, you process that memory.
Whoa.
So that's what's really unique and cool about it. But for someone with years of trauma, I did therapy, the EMDR, maybe for a year and a half, and it was really, really rough.
Was it every week? For a year and a half?
I would do it every other week because it can be really exhausting, and you don't want to do it every week.
Okay.
It's kind of short, intense spurts.
Yeah.
But I did it, every other week for a year and a half, and then I felt great. I had no more nightmares. I had no more flashbacks. I was had things to think about, things to journal about. I have my problems, but it was kind of I felt healed. I could live my life and I wasn't having PTSD symptoms. And I don't know. That's kind of that was my first experience, I guess, was that I went through it and I just started singing the praises because it really, really helped me. And then this podcast comes at a really good time because my therapist told me when I told her I didn't really feel like I needed to come back right then, she said, that's great. And if you ever need EMDR again, things pop up in your life, as they do, then you kind of just come back in and you can reprocess.
Yeah, a tune-up.
Tune-up, get through something and then go again.
Yeah.
And so this came up at a good time because I started that again last week.
Awesome.
For the first time, but I had about a 2.5-year break where I didn't even need therapy after that thing.
Wow.
At least from,
Wow.
So it was good.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, are you, maybe this is a loaded question, but are you ever really healed from your trauma?
No, it is a loaded question.
How would you describe that?
I mean,
are you more able to, would the more appropriate word would be cope and live your life and move on?
I think that you can experience healing, but saying that you're not healed. I think the right way to look at it is that trauma, your traumatic experiences are a part of you and they make who you are. So you're not really trying to get rid of them.
You can't erase it.
No, you can't erase it. But you're trying to change your perspective of them so they help you instead of hinder you.
Yeah, they don't cripple you.
Yes, because besides processing the memory, one of the other core things with EMDR is changing your negative associations, either of something or of yourself. So to kind of explain that, one of the memories that so all the memories that you process, so each process session is like you're picking a specific incident. So in my case, where it's like years of abuse, you're not just like, I'm going to process my abuse. First, I would tell the therapist, like, there's this specific thing that I remember, and this is like the situation around it, right? And it's like one day, like a couple hours of time, like one specific thing. And then what she would ask me to do would say, what like core, what did she call it? Like, what core belief is this memory stirring up for you? And so I remember one of the memories in particular, my core belief about that was that I deserved it. And that was what that was making me seem. And it was a memory, a very old memory. I was probably like 9, but I was like, when I was sitting there and like kind of like thinking about it, I was just like, no, I deserved it. And I was like, I believe that, even though like in your head, you're like, no, I didn't. But I like, that was my core belief from that.
Right.
And so what she would tell me was, okay, you're going to take the TheraTappers. This was kind of like the actual process of it. You're going to close your eyes. And she says, you don't have to tell me anything. And I never did. She said, I'm going to turn them on and you're going to jump into the most traumatic part of the memory, like the hardest part that you can remember. And you're also going to be keeping in mind that belief that you're having about it, that
you deserve
that I deserve it. And then so I would do that and I would jump in, and it was really hard. Like sometimes you felt like you were like running or like stressed and like breathing hard. And if she noticed that I would be like sweating or like breathing too hard, then she would stop them and make me take a break. You kind of go through it, and your brain does like really weird things. Like I don't want to like really like go into like the details of mine because it's kind of like private, but when you're like going through the memories, you might start noticing. The other thing is that you're not supposed to go in first person. Sorry, I should have remembered that at first. You're supposed to be watching it like bird's eye view or like a third person.
Okay. So you're like in the room.
Yeah. So you try not to go into yours. So you can think you're watching it on like a TV, or you can be like on the ceiling or something like that. And I would usually go on the ceiling. And so I would see things in the room, like remember things that I didn't remember, or maybe even my brain would make up some things. There were times where it started with what actually happened. It was a memory, and then it developed into like the characters in the event doing things that didn't happen in real life, but like helped me heal. Like I remember one memory in particular started with something when I was like 13, and I was watching what had actually happened. And then it kind of transformed almost like you're in a dream. And I ended up like escaping and like left the house. And then like my children were there. And then I had like a healing moment, and then like things like that. Or I had one memory where I got transported in my mind to the prison and had like a conversation facing my dad and like confronting him. So it's like your brain does some things that are not like true, but it's kind of like processing things.
Yeah.
And then the reason I'm going into all of this is back to the core belief. Like after a few sessions of processing a specific memory, sometimes my therapist would ask me like, what is your core belief now? And I remember I got to a point where I was like, I didn't deserve that.
Right.
But like believed it. And so, wasn't just saying it. And so it's that's kind of the healing, where it's like I still have that baggage, but I'm able to really be like, that happened. I didn't deserve it.
Right.
And then like,
but truly say that.
and like truly say it.
Truly believe that, no, I really did not deserve what horrific thing that happened to me.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like,
it should never have happened.
Exactly. And like actually believe it. Yeah. And actually like be able to carry that truth. Yeah. And then so I think it's not disrupting your life as much anymore, because you kind of like, the truth, even though you also have what happened.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't erase what happened, but you're able to process it in a much maybe healthier way of saying, no, that was something that was horrific and wrong that happened to me, and I should never have been in that situation and no one should be in that situation, right? And like truly believe it instead of saying it just to say it.
Yeah, because that was kind of, I did on and off talk therapy a few times over the years before this therapist. And that was kind of where I felt like things ended, where they're just like, oh, you know, you don't deserve it, or you know, it wasn't your fault. And you're just like, okay,
Right.
yeah.
Well, it happened though, right?
And then you're still just like sad, or you're like, sure, because you want me to say that. But I felt like EMDR was the only thing that really helped me just, and it's in the name, process it.
Right.
And that's what needs to be done, is like you have to process the memories and work through them to like figure out what part of it is triggering you. And then you're kind of able to like put it to rest in a way.
Yeah. So you felt like a year and a half of every other week going through this process helped.
Yeah. Well, and that was me processing probably like 15 years of the worst memories I could pull up.
Yeah.
And that was about a year and a half. But on it, like as an alternate example, I utilized EMDR one time shortly after that year and a half for just 3 sessions when I had a really traumatic birth with my second son for me. And that kind of gave me some insight into how it might work. Like if somebody had one traumatic event, like if they were in a really bad car crash or they had something like that, then I saw how EMDR could be utilized for that, because I went in and I was like really struggling with this birth, and we processed it, I think, for like 2 to 3 sessions, and then I didn't go back.
Okay.
And I was still like, same thing, I was still like sad about it. I wasn't like, oh, that was a great birth now, but I was not feeling like, you know, depressed.
Scared to have your next one.
Yes, exactly. And that was something we talked about was, because, you know, you're a good friend of mine. And it was like, after I had my second son, I was like so scared to have another child. I was like, I don't think I'm going to have any more children, because it was so bad. And then I had another child because I kind of processed it and worked through it. And I was able to like get over that hump.
Yeah. I was surprised when you told me that, because I always knew that you wanted more than 2 kids. And I knew it was traumatic of an event enough for you to say, Helen, I don't know if I want any more kids. Like that was the first time I heard that. And I was like, wait a minute.
Right. It wasn't like tracking.
It wasn't tracking what we've talked about before or shared about before, you know, your desires to grow your family. So that is, I didn't know that. I didn't know you went back to EMDR to heal from that.
Yeah, it was really brief and it was effective. Because I kind of got past that and then coming around to the present. So I think that my timelines are getting all jumbled, and this is helping me like line it up. I think that I had been out of EMDR for like a year. I went around the time of my son, the traumatic birth, my son's first birthday, and did that. So then I've been, I guess, on a 2-year break with no therapy. And what happened is that over the summer, my oldest turned 5, which is kind of around when I have kind of my first concrete memories of some things happening to me. And then my third child that I was just wonderfully blessed with like almost a year ago now, I guess. Yeah, because her birthday's on Friday.
Yeah.
It's my first girl.
Yeah.
And my therapist and I, we've kept in contact a little bit on email kind of throughout my 2-year break. And she mentioned to me, like, let me know if you need some help with having a girl. And those were kind of the things that kind of are making me come back right now, is processing that age of my oldest son, and then thinking about raising a girl and just kind of the fears I have, I think, being a girl myself and having a very different childhood than, you know, she's having, thankfully.
Right.
But just kind of those fears of like not wanting her to feel any ways that I felt or feeling hurt. And I am not having problems the great thing about EMDR, why I love it, is I'm not having problems with the memories that I processed already. Those are not cropping up. And that was something I was curious about, was like, are those going to, break open? Is it only temporary?
It's going to resurface one day.
They're not resurfacing. That's what's really like awesome, and why I still really think it works is I'm having new memories. Because it's like, obviously in a year and a half, you can't cover every incident.
Well, how do you cover 15 years of abuse? Like,
you're just not going to. And it's not like things that I forgot about, but it's like other memories from the abuse, which weren't the pressing traumatic ones, are now the ones that are coming up. And they might just be more like relevant to things in my current life, but that's what it is. But I think it's really cool because I'm going to process new ones, but I'm not like taking steps backwards.
Right.
It's like,
that's
I'm
part of the
adding new.
healing journey, right?
Yeah.
You like peel back one layer at a time.
Yes. Yeah.
But you did the hard work of attacking like the really hard ones earlier. And that's amazing that you're able to move forward instead of backwards, right? Because I think that's what some people are afraid of sometimes when they hear about these kinds of things. It's like, it's just drudging up every single situation. And when does it end, right? It's like, it's trauma after trauma after trauma after trauma. It gets really exhausting.
It's hard. Yeah. And I would take a few weeks off in that year and a half because sometimes I was like, I can't. Or a lot of times if I had therapy scheduled, I would try to get like grandma to watch the boys for a few hours, or my husband would be prepared to like take them to the park because I would need a nap. So it's like, the thing with EMDR is you have to be prepared to work. Like, it's not easy, but at the same time, it's not, I don't think you're dredging up anything for no reason, because it kind of like, it puts things to rest in a way that I didn't find any other way to do.
Right. Yeah. Would you recommend EMDR for even, I don't know how to say this. Trauma is trauma, but there's varying degrees of trauma, right? Someone getting into a car accident, I don't think equates to the kind of 15 years of trauma that you went through, right? So is EMDR kind of like for any type of trauma? Or do you think it's more effective when it's more a higher degree of trauma, right? Like where it was ongoing deep-rooted childhood, sexual abuse kind of situations.
I think that for very, very deep ongoing trauma, I would almost always recommend EMDR. I think I would also really recommend it for like a one-time very acute thing. Like if you experience something really traumatic, even if it was only for a few hours, like it could be helpful. But I think that I think the right answer is that I wouldn't not recommend it. Like, I think any kind of trauma it would help with.
Yeah.
But I think that if there's something that someone feels like, I think I would always recommend starting out with talk therapy. I think that's the answer. Even if you have like years of therapy, because that's what I started out, years of trauma, because that's what I started out with. And I think that if somebody is like doing talk therapy and feeling like that's helping, or just talking with their friends, or they're finding other coping methods, and they don't feel like they're being like inundated by their trauma, I might not say like, oh, you should do EMDR. Does that make sense? Like, just because it's a lot of work and it's like a commitment, even if you're only doing a lot of sessions, like it's just really digging deep into the brain. So I guess like if you had like a car accident and it was scary and it was like hard to drive, I might recommend like trying a few other like coping techniques first. But if you had been in like a horrific car accident and saw a bunch of people die, like that would probably like help you.
Right.
I don't know. Like I hate grading people's trauma because I know that's not like what you're doing there, but that's something that and I might have talked about this in my first podcast, that like really has been hard for me, is sometimes people will come to me if they've heard my story and they're just like, oh, like this happened to me, but it's just nothing like your story. So I feel bad, like even complaining about it. And I'm just like, no, like that's your story. Yeah. Like trauma is trauma. And like you, like not like everyone has to have trauma and like we're in the trauma club, but like, it makes me really uncomfortable when people degrade their experiences.
Because they compared it to yours?
Yeah, compared to mine or like someone else's just because I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure why, but like I feel for everyone's like thing that they're working through, and just because I got given my load like doesn't make theirs not matter. So
yeah,
I think it's just, I guess the bottom line for all of those words is that if they feel like they've tried some other coping mechanisms and they still just can't work through, then I'd recommend it to everyone. But with the like knowledge that it's just, you're going to have to be willing to put in work. So is this something that you want to put in work in? Like it's bothering you that much? I guess that's what I would say.
Any thank you for that. Any side effects that you felt like came from EMDR, your experience with EMDR?
It's interesting. I wouldn't say side effects. No. I think the only thing is sometimes I would just feel tired afterwards and want to take a nap, like I said. But
because your brain did a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then something I do every single time I have EMDR is I get Subway for myself. Every single time. It's like a ritual. Yeah. And I just started out because I just was driving home the first time and felt really like sad.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just want Subway, and I got it. And then now that's like my thing. And then so I think that kind of just helps like close it up. But no side effects. One of the coolest things, I didn't mention this earlier, but after you've kind of processed through the memory, and I'm not sure if every therapist does it differently, but the way mine did it is she wanted me to create a box before we even started, one that wasn't able to open and wasn't able to, like it was just a very firmly locked box. And I pictured what it looked like and the color and every way and the way that it closed. And she made me think of that at first. And then at the end of every session, before she closed it out, I had to put the memory in there and like clasp it. And it worked. Yeah, there was only maybe 1 or 2 times where I felt like some of the like anxieties and fears of the memory came up after the session. And she wanted me to tell her about that because that wasn't supposed to happen. It was supposed to be like you're processing and then you kind of like close it away. And that did work. So besides being tired, I didn't really have any side effects.
Okay. Wow. I'm so grateful that there is a tool like that for you to tap into. I
think it's great. Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing that you found it, and it's amazing that it's worked, because I'm sure EMDR doesn't work for everybody, right? You kind of have to find your type of therapy. But I'm so grateful that it works for you because you're a different person because of it, right? It helps you move on. You have little people that depend on you to be not only physically healthy but mentally healthy, and so like everybody benefits when you are better.
Yeah. And I do feel like a different person since it, but kind of more like I'm who I was supposed to be. Yeah. Kind of like got to slough off some of the like injuries. Yeah.
Wow. Well, you're amazing, and that it's, I've kind of known you for a while now, and it's just always been amazing to see the healing that has come from just time, and tools like this and stuff like that. And do you think that EMDR is going to be a part of your life for, ongoing as you bring more kids into the situation and changes in your marriage, or like other things will come up, right? So
I think so, yeah. I think it's definitely, I try not to see anything as like a cure-all or put my faith, 100% in anything. But for now, it's worked for me every time. And so it's like a tool that if I ended up having something I needed to work through in like my marriage or any other part of my life, that's probably something I would like go to first.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it works. Yeah. And I think it's a really good tool to use if people need. Yeah. Yep.
Awesome.
So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming back in and of course sharing your story and just the progress that you've made to continue to heal and move on with your life. And yeah, folks, if EMDR is something that you're interested in getting into, there's I think there's like a ton of licensed therapists out there.
I feel like it's blowing up.
Yeah.
Because when I started it like 5 years ago, nobody really seemed to have heard of it. And there was even a few therapists I talked to that were like, oh, I don't know about that. It's kind of like maybe like a voodoo type thing. Like I was saying, and I was like, what? But then now everyone I meet is like, oh, so-and-so just got licensed in that. So I think it's like a growing field.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think if it's effective, then people are going to gravitate towards it, and then there's a demand for it, right?
And I think it's great because it's something you can try before like medicine or something. Like, I don't know. I think it's really valuable for the mental health field.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm so grateful again for your time and coming back here and just sharing with us the progress that you've had. And I love you.
I love you too. And I love 3W.
Thank you.
Good podcast.
Yes. All right, folks, if you have any more questions, can people reach out to you and email you?
Yeah.
If they have any further questions?
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, I'm fine if you share like my email.
Okay.
And people can reach out to me because I like to talk about EMDR, and I also am open to talking to other people that have had similar trauma because I know it's sometimes hard to find that.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. So thank you. Thank you for your willingness. And EMDR, folks, do a little research. If it's something you're interested in, I'm sure you can find a therapist out there that specializes in it. And it might be a tool that you could tap into for some deep-rooted trauma that you want to just move forward from. So thanks, Andra.
Yeah, you're
Thanks
welcome.
for your time. All right. Till next time, folks. Be well.
For more information about 3W, please visit our website at 3wmedical.org. That's the number 3, the letter W, medical.org. From there, you can learn more information about the services we provide, book an appointment, or make a donation if you'd like to support our mission. You can also call our office at 206-588-0311. That's 206-588-0311. If you like this episode, please share it with others and consider subscribing on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, stay healthy and be well.